And Dr. Spallis, it's all yours.
All righty, thanks, Gerald. Hey, well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Student Mentor Lunch, and I am James Spallis, and I'll be hosting the event. The Mentor Lunch is an annual event, and it's an important one at the Three Beams Conference. It gives our students an opportunity to pick the minds of professionals from academia, government, and industry. It's your chance, students, to hear from the experts about why they chose their field, what it takes to get there, and what it really is like once they arrive. Now, we're lucky to have a great group of mentors today, so I encourage you to ask questions. Don't be shy. Do the rotations, maybe rotate to a table where there are mentors and fields you may not be interested in. I find that hearing from a broad range of experiences can really be rewarding. It's become a tradition, I think, to kick off this meeting with a speaker, and we are really lucky today to have Professor Smith here. I have heard a version of this talk, and I assure you that not only is it informative, but entertaining. And if you're like me, you'll probably think about outlines and PowerPoint presentations a lot differently after you hear this talk. So when we get back to the meeting, we're going to do 4 sessions, 4 rotations, each one about 10 minutes long. And I know these discussions do tend to linger. So when I gently remind you to rotate, please try to wrap it up and move to another table. We're scheduled to run right up to 1 o'clock. We tend to run long in these things. Don't worry about it. This is the last session of the day. So if you want to mingle a little bit afterwards, I'm quite sure some, if not all of our mentors will be happy to stick around and continue the discussion. Okay, so today we are very lucky.
What happened?
So that's going to play well historically if we put this in, as we put this in the records. Chung Fei, can you go back to the room and tell Gerald that we could hear him? All righty. All right, so today we're very lucky to have Professor Smith talk to us about presenting a memorable talk or poster, or how to present 3 years of research in 15 minutes. Professor Smith is a professor of electrical engineering emeritus at MIT. He is a member of the National Academy of Engineering, a fellow of the American Academy of Arts and Sciences, the IEEE, the OSA, and the National Academy of Inventors. He is a recipient of the IEEE Robert N. Noyes Medal, the Cleto Brunetti Award of the IEEE, the Bacchus Award of SPIE, the Nano 50 Innovator Award, the Robert H. Hill Memorial Award, the Professional Excellence Award of the Boston College Alumni Association, and an honorary Doctor of Science from Holy Cross College. Professor Smith was the 1979 EIPBN Conference Chair and is currently a member of the Advisory Committee. He is well known, very well known, as an enthusiastic student mentor and a longtime friend and contributor to the EIPBN community. Professor Smith.
James, thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be here. The first time I've ever done a remote conference like this. I'm going to talk first about the presenting at a conference, and then say a few words about posters and how they differ. The rule I sort of operate under for a conference presentation is that if you don't understand a conference presentation, it's not your fault, it's the fault of the presenter. You know, unlike a journal article where, you know, if you don't understand something, you can reread that sentence and go back over it. You can't do that at a conference. So it's important that, you know, the audience understands things the first time that you say them, or the first time that you point out a particular point. You know, a presentation, a lot of students make the mistake that a presentation at a conference is like a thesis defense. It's not. It's completely different. You know, the people that are sitting there have not been on your thesis committee, so they don't know very much about what you're going to talk about. So you have to introduce it appropriately. And I think the way to think about it is not as like a thesis presentation that you've been working on for a couple of years, but think of it more like a newspaper article and use the idea of the headline. In other words, get attention and draw attention with the headline. Okay, so I made up a list of 13 things which I think are good guidelines for a presentation at a conference. And number one is don't repeat your name or the title of your talk. The audience already knows that, and it's just a waste of time. It doesn't mean anything. The next thing is never show an outline. Now, a lot of people disagree with this, and I have good reasons for that. So ask me in the question and answer period why I feel emphatically you shouldn't ever use an outline. Use instead of an outline, use the first few minutes of your talk to motivate it and to show and to indicate what the content is going to be and why. You know, what's the important thing here? You can assume that the audience knows very little. Don't assume that they know all your acronyms and what you've been thinking about for the last 2 years. It's kind of hard to do that because you've been so focused on your work for so long. In your presentation, it's preferable to use graphics, a lot, because the graphic enables a listener to grasp an idea at a glance without listening for any great length of time. And it's good to use color in your graphics to sort of liven things up and so forth. But a very important point, don't encode information in color. And one reason is because many people are colorblind. And so if you code information within color, they won't get it. They'll lose that. So try to use graphics, not text, because again, you can grab the information in a graphic much more quickly than sort of at a glance, as opposed to a written text. There are some printing and some writing that you have to do. And in that case, make sure you use fonts that are large enough they can be seen in the back of the room. If you have small fonts, then they might as well not be there because people can't read them. And in you're going to be using a sequence of slides, of graphics. So make sure that you use space wisely. In other words, make sure that the graphics, that the individual slides contain the key information, the key idea you want to get across, and don't clutter it with a lot of somewhat superfluous information. And it's good also in a presentation to use a pointer to draw the attention of the audience to a key point in the idea that you want to get across. Okay. Also keep in mind that you'll be talking and the audience will be looking at your slides. So there's inevitably two media here and two mechanisms. There's listening and looking. And so as a result, if you want the audience to listen to you, don't write a lot of text. Make them to listen to you. If you try to get an audience to listen and also read at the same time, it doesn't really work. They can only handle one medium at a time, and the graphics, which they can grasp quickly in a quick glance. Also, if you have to use mathematics, sometimes you do, try to minimize it. And if you do use it, draw attention to what the mathematics is really saying. What's the point of using the math? You can use a lot more math in a journal article because people have the time to read it and study it and go back over it and to confirm it if they want to. It's impossible to do that in the context of a presentation. Also, don't try to tell everything you know. It's really good to provoke questions, just like I did at the beginning. My question was, why not show an outline? You can ask me a question, and it's in the asking of questions and in the back and forth of answering the question that we actually learn most effectively. And that's true in a classroom, and it's true in a conference setting. And lastly, as a guideline, is to listen. Notice presentations that are clear and well done, and try to imitate those. Now, with respect to a poster, there are some people that feel a poster should stand on its own and should be understandable even when the person who prepared the poster isn't there. Well, there's something to be said for that, but generally speaking, my feeling is the poster should require somebody to explain it, and somewhat the same rules that apply to the oral presentation apply to the poster as well, as that is with respect to explaining the using headlines, explaining what the importance is, what the important conclusion is, and what you've done. And when people are really interested in learning more, they have the journal article, and they go to the journal article and they can study that in great detail. So those are my comments, and happy to entertain any questions or challenges to what I said.
Thank you,
John.
Hank.
John,
Hey,
you have a challenge.
tell us what you really think about outlines.
Well, the problem with an outline, outlines are great in a textbook. It's like a table of contents, right? Because you go back and forth, okay? But the problem with an outline in a presentation is that it inevitably introduces things which haven't been explained yet. So, quite often you'll see most people show outlines and they have all these acronyms, and they haven't told you yet what the acronyms mean. So putting the outline up there conveys almost no information, and it just wastes time, particularly at if it's a 15-minute presentation. If you have an hour, fine, I mean, when you go to the movies, they don't show you an outline of what the movie's going to be about. When you read a newspaper article, they don't give you an outline of it. Why is it that people think they need an outline in the 10-minute presentation? It's a crazy idea.
Hank, I have another comment. In my opinion, if you go to an Asian country where maybe people are not so familiar with the English language, I tend to put more information on the slides than maybe in other countries.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. Yeah, you have to realize this is an international community, and they won't understand English as quickly as I speak it. So yes, yeah, more information in the text and more graphics. Yeah, good idea. Good point.
Hank, what is your thought, I guess, extending the outline thinking? How do you feel about sort of an executive summary or a summary of the talk at the beginning?
Well,
is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, I think the summary is a good idea, but I think it belongs at the end. Well, I mean, in a sense, your opening remark is, I'm going to prove, your opening remark can be a summary. Is I'm going to demonstrate to you that I can circumvent the resolution limit of name your technology and can do it at low cost. Okay. And then get people's attention, and then they'll listen. You don't have to explain why in the summary. And at the end, you can say, well, as I showed you, we beat the resolution limit. And you should buy this tool, whatever the conclusion is. So yeah, summary is good, but I think you need to draw people's attention just like a newspaper article does. They show a headline.
So Hank, how do you like animations in PowerPoint versus the old school, let's say, view graphs in the past?
Good question.
Yeah, good point. If they work, if they accomplish the objective, of teaching something, for example, you could use a video to show the propagation of electromagnetic waves through an obstacle or something like that. So that's teaching. But if it's done just to be cute, it's kind of a waste, I think. But there are some things, yeah, like propagation and scattering and things like that are done well with video, for sure.
So what do you think about the avatar movement in this video game environment for the conference?
Oh my God. Well, I'm showing my age, I just turned 84. I've never played a video game, so I really don't know what you mean. So, I know what an avatar is, though.
Hank, I have a question. What's your feelings about the speed of delivery of content? And if you could answer, is it better to have 20, 30 slides or 50 in the 15 minutes of fame that we all have here at EIPBN?
Yeah, that's a good question. I have heard this rule about how many slides you could present per minute, but I think that really the proper role is what's the information rate. You can show up lots of slides as long as the information content in each is small. And sometimes, for example, I have shown slides which just contain a few words, and you can go through those very quickly. So I don't think there's, you know, it's really comes down to a question of how fast can the human mind process information, and depends a little bit upon how deep is the information. Like if it's a, you know, complex graphic and a lot of things are going on, a lot of phenomena being represented, then you should take a long time with it. So it's a matter of judgment. It's hard call. I don't think there's a hard and fast rule.
So going back to animation, Hank, so when you're doing a bulleted list and you want to kind of go through the list, do you want them to pop up one at a time, or should the whole list be there ahead of time?
Well, that's a very good question. And I don't know the answer to that. And I'll tell you why, because quite often when people put up a bulleted list, I'll look at it and I'll say, yeah, I get A, I get B, I get C, I get D, and I'm looking at E, but the presenter is still talking about B. So in some respects, I'm losing it. So you have a good point. Maybe it's better, since we have the technology, to put that bulleted list up one at a time. Then I can't read ahead of you. I have to stay in time with you while you're presenting. I think that's a good idea.
But a lot of people complain about, okay, that's so much animation. You're spending all this time popping up these things one at a time. That it's distracting.
Yeah. I suppose that can be. Yeah, I don't have a good answer. I mean, again, the message is, the point is, how do you get the most information, the most useful information across most easily? I mean, that's the objective. Yeah, it's not to be cute, you know. It's really to teach. How do you best teach? And people will appreciate it because people come there to learn.
Hank, how do you feel about humor in presentations?
Well, I'm kind of a humorless guy, so I think it's good. You know, I mean, I wouldn't tell a joke at a technical conference, but like people do at certain gatherings. But I think a little bit of humor, particularly if it gets attention and makes a point. I mean, why not?
I want to make a comment about summary. I think they're very important at the beginning of a talk, especially if you're presenting to executives. You have 30 seconds to get their attention. Why are you talking to them?
Yeah. The attention getting is important. And what is it about? You know, what does this talk about? Why are you giving? You know, why I'm going to be talking about ion beams instead of electrons, because ion beams have higher mass and they do this. That's so then that gets attention. And then, yeah, sure, summaries at the end are very valuable.
I really liked your answer.
By the way, that is something that newspapers don't do. They give you the headline, but they don't tend to not give you the summary at the end. But I think that's one we want to walk away from a talk with a clear conclusion as to what did I learn.
I think Regina has a question.
Thanks, Gerald. Hank, hi, how are you doing?
Hi, good to see you.
It's really good to see you here. Actually, there is a question in the chat I would like to point also attention before I go to my question. What are your feelings about recording presentations for later review, internal to a meeting versus externally? That's a question by James Conway. So it's about recordings of meetings.
Yeah, well, you know, we live in a world where everybody has an iPhone and they can record you. I guess we just have to get used to it and not be sensitive to it. Yeah. I don't see any I don't have any problem. I don't see any problem there unless.
I actually took your picture just before we started because I just have to have it for the record. That's a very special one that you attend the virtual conference where you have attended, I think, all 3-beam conference beside 2 or so, right? Yeah. Which is another question. How many 3-beams have you attended?
Oh my goodness, starting in 1968, 69, maybe, yeah. Quite a few, yeah. I think all of them over that course of years. Oh, except
how many of you missed?
Except one when I was sick and I couldn't attend. So yeah.
Yeah. Then I have a quick one. Have you been friends with Patrick Winston at MIT? AI professor. He has a wonderful talk about how to speak He gives it as a course. Patrick Winston.
Yeah, I know the name and I'm trying to put a face with it. Pat, is he in the, oh, I know who, oh, yeah, of course, I know. Yes, yeah, Pat. Oh, yeah, he does a very good job. Yeah, he has a very strong sense of communication, you know, how to optimally communicate. Yes.
He likes props, so
Yeah.
bring tools and stuff. Do you think that is really helpful also in the 15 minutes talk? And then I shut up.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you think it's helpful in a 15 minutes talk to bring a prop?
I'm sorry, say that. Could you say that again?
To bring a prop, to bring something like I show you here something in a 15 minutes talk. Is that helpful?
Oh, I think so. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay,
I mean,
cool. Thanks.
These things are helpful as long as they're not distractions, you know.
I hate to interrupt, but maybe just one more question, then we need to get to the mentoring session of our meeting.
Yeah, I'd like to have a question. This is balancing, the bullet points and the figures. I usually let the audience read on their own and just focus on talking to the figure. What's your opinion about that?
Well, I tend to not like the audience to do too much reading. I think if it's an oral presentation, they should listen. And I fall back on what's the optimal way of communicating, and if you're speaking clearly and people can understand you, and you're speaking slowly, why not? Why ask people to also read at the same time? To a first approximation, it should be one or the other, I think. So, graphics and spoken, they can grab the graphics instantaneously, but in fact, there's an interesting example of that. If you've traveled in the Far East and you've gotten to learn some of the Chinese characters in China and Japan, you see how quickly you can look at those characters and get the idea. It's instantaneous. Whereas in Roman written language, you have to read it word by word. You don't grasp the concept instantly like you do with a kanji character. So I think the principle applies.
All right. With that, let's why don't we reconvene back at the conference and continue with the mentoring part of our program.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
Okay. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.